ourselves a batch of shinies, Commander.
And welcome everyone to episode 2 of Coordinated Fire, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast where we glue our models together with maple syrup. How's it going, guys?
Doing good.
Fantastic. First one went great, and excited to dive into episode 2.
Yeah, I'll start off. I want to thank everyone out there for the support so far. We wouldn't continue doing this without you guys out there. Thanks everyone that jumped in and listened to the first. We're excited to keep this going and keep the momentum strong. Let's kick it off with some recent games played. We were able to get our regular games night in on Thursday. I managed to get 2 games in. You guys each got 1?
That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah,
one
all
game.
right.
I was able to play Krennic, Vader 3, Shore Troopers, Moff Gideon, Death Trooper, Escort, and Dark Troopers. I played this against Kyle's brother Ryan, who was playing the Dathomirian list, which was Asajj, Aurra Sing, Magna Guards, Mother Talzin, Savage, and Night Sisters. This was the second time playing against this. I played against Titus with this list as well, too. My second game with Krennic. This game went fairly quick. Krennic did some great work there, stealing points. Shore Troopers are really, really great when they get on objectives with the protection and steadfast. Really tried to avoid Mother Talzin triggers at times where I could. I think she only triggered once, so did try and play kind of the more control game with the Dark Troopers shoves and V3 with that control aspect. The Dathomirian list, I think, after this game has really confirmed with me that Magna Guard are a huge liability in that list. They're not able to be moved. They only have 1 advance. And yeah, I was able to take this one in 2 struggles.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some more testing there and figuring out where Asajj's right home is. But honestly, I'm super glad that Krennic's going well so far.
I'm hoping she does good in Separatist, because my experience with the Dathomirians was not great.
Yeah, I think, Titus, I know you have Asajj Grievous on your test list.
Yeah, I have a lot of things on my test list, though, so we'll see when we get to it.
Don't we all? And then, Titus, you and I were able to play a game this week. What was your list?
So I had Ahsoka and Cassian, which I still think it's got potential to be a good pairing, but it did not go well. So I had Ahsoka with Aurra Sing in the 501st, and then Cassian Andor with Lobot and the Rebel Commandos. And boy, the 501st got a buff. Aurra got a buff. But without the tag synergy really being there, the 501st were not great. And Aurra still has the problem where she needs to get within firing range to do something. So when you pull her first, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, I can say from my experience on the other side of that game. So I played Mace Hunter. So it was Mace, Wolf, Arfs with Hunter, Wrecker, and the Wolfpack. You know, for list-wise, I think my lesson out of this was, wow, Mace really still needs something that can move him. Because... Yeah. Mace wasn't super impactful to this game, although my force counter was.
Mace is just an infinite force battery now.
Yeah, and, you know, I think part of the benefit that I had, and this is, you know, how I've kind of always played Hunter and in the batch. Titus, I don't think I wounded you. Maybe I got the 501st once.
Yeah, like, you got 2 wounds towards the end of the game, but it was when it really didn't matter. One thing we've kind of been realizing is, in our little community meta, we just don't wound a whole lot, so we don't tend to be very big on the revenge triggers because we all kind of know how to play around them and don't tend towards that really lethal playstyle anyway. Obviously, when we go to events, that changes, but with our little Peterborough community, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and that's always been my approach with Republic, which is why I'm, you know, maybe a little gun shy on Anakin being my go-to. But what I can say from your list, Titus, is that Lobot or Singh has a very nice 5-dice attack.
Oh yeah, that was nice.
And that was, I want to say, the best play you made from your side in that game to make a swing back.
Yep. It was one of the few good ones. It was a very short game.
And I was able to get one more game in just after that one with you, Titus, against Josh. So I played Mace, Rex, Arfs, and then Ahsoka, Wolf, and Wolfpack. This list definitely felt better. It's nice to feel like Rex has, some more homes outside of Kenobi. In general, Mace being hunkered is a little interesting because yes, there's no Kenobi here. You can just remove it by engaging, but then you have to engage Mace, which comes with its own negatives.
Its own set of problems.
Yeah, so I definitely like this list a bit more. This was my first time playing against 3PO and Ewoks. I can tell you I was actually pretty impressed. I think 3PO was ended up being the biggest playmaker for Josh in that game. But overall, the general toughness with Mace and Ahsoka, it was really tough for the Ewoks to get some attacks through. Ahsoka's free expertise is incredible. They took one of the best parts of Kit's kit, and gave it to Ahsoka as an aura. And it changes a lot of the clone math. Like, yes, her defense from an expertise perspective is just good on its own, but if she's within that range too, it helps the clones out a lot. 1 to 2 expertise is your most common. 1, it's giving you a guaranteed block first and foremost, but on that dreaded 2 expertise on a clone roll, which, if you ask me based on my feelings, happens 100% of the time, turning that into 3 and getting 2 blocks out of that is a really nice increase.
So I would like to note it is very similar to Chewie's intimidating presence as well. So yeah. Rebel players that were playing Chewie will have something to be familiar with coming in over to Republic. I am really curious to see how it feels to stack the 2, but we'll see how that goes.
It's the most tightest list I've ever heard.
More mad scientist stuff. I love it.
Awesome. So I think that's games played. I think all of us are going through a similar thing right now post rebalance, that if I could get 30 games in a week, I certainly would. I have a very long list of things that I want to test, but a lot of what we've got going on, we have Battle for Breath coming up as a local event. Sean, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I actually just updated the pricing for Battle for Breath. It's going to be June 7th and 8th at the KW Granite Club in Kitchener-Waterloo. Again, this is an event that supports Cystic Fibrosis Canada. There's a huge raffle table with lots of great Shatterpoint items on it. And I think actually, and I'll say this tonight, a little surprise from Tablebound coming as well. So we are 2 weeks away from that event. Tickets are up now. If you search Battle for Breath 2025, you can find the section with the Shatterpoint tickets on it. They use the Buy Me a Coffee website, which is interesting for the way to do tickets. Buy your ticket. I'll add you to the Longshanks. Come on up. It's going to be a great day. We are very close to 20 players already, so 20 plus is the goal here, and we're going to have a great day. It's a great couple days.
Awesome. So Sean, you're running the event, so prep looks a little different from your side. But yeah. Titus, you and I get to play, and I can tell you I'm very excited for this one. It's an incredible charity event. We're getting to do 5 rounds over 2 days, and I'm very excited to get first event post rebalance. Titus, do you have any idea what you're leaning towards in terms of what you're taking?
So nothing is solid yet, but the first one I'm looking at, and this was actually kind of made as a group, but looking at Padme box with Cad Bane, Dengar, and Han and Chewie. So the idea behind that is just give everybody handmaiden tags when relevant. Padme has the coordinated fire 2 damage. Cad has essentially supporting fire 2 damage, and you're doing a lot of damage with that. Sabe can move a ridiculous amount of bodies when you payday someone as handmaidens. I have done it before with Cad Django bounty hunters. I tried it with Cad Aura bounty hunters. Both felt very good. I believe I played that at the first GT, and
yep.
I've always been a fan of the list. Now that Cad is multi-era, having Dengar and Han and Chewie just feels like a straight upgrade in both categories.
I think from a Force perspective, Dengar's going to help there. Cad is probably your most common reserve in that list.
Force? What's Force? I kill things and then I spend more Force. That's how this works.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm excited to see it in action. I've played against you playing the old version of that list a few times, and it's always impressed me. Titus, you and I went through the exact same moment of disappointment, realizing that Aurra Sing cannot be a handmaiden.
No, it turns out Queen Amidala does not have the handmaiden tag, and it will make me sad for the rest of my life.
For myself, and no surprise here, but I am very much leaning Republic. Mace has really stood out for me. Ahsoka's really stood out for me. I certainly have not solidified that list. I've got some more testing to do this week and the weekend. We are 2 weeks out for the event. But the other thing that can really help, inform on what things to try when there's so many new things and so many things you want to check out. So I think it's a great time to dive into some early data from post rebalance. How are some primaries doing, especially the big changes, what their best pairings are. So let's take a look into that a bit. I definitely want to start off with Ahsoka, Jedi No More. For me, she's one of the most improved, I think, from where she was to where she is now. And that was already in a playable state. We had seen Ahsoka in Mando pairings, especially when Mando first came out. Fell off a little bit when Armor came out, but Ahsoka's a primary that we had seen on the table at the very least. But Republic was in desperate need of a revenge trigger that wasn't turned off by being pinned. And that glow up is just incredible. Healing 3, she can move in any direction. She gets a full dice on the revenge attack. And just that expertise aura is a massive change to her defensive output. I don't want to dive too deep into Ahsoka here. That is for another episode. But from some early games, so she's had 62 games since rebalance, and that is with a 68% win rate. So if we want to talk about primary glow up, 68% is incredible. To be honest, I don't think that's totally reflective of her power level as it stands. I don't imagine that will maintain at 68%. In fact, I'm concerned if it does. But part of that is on the back of a few different pairings. One I want to call out, so Ahsoka Mando is, 4 games at 100% win rate right now. And that is with, on Revenge, that is 2 primaries running around. In a similar fashion, Ahsoka Cassian, which again, Titus played, and maybe there's some list tweaks to do here, is sitting at an 80% win rate with 10 games played. Ahsoka Mace, and that's one that I've tested a few times now, sitting at a 70% win rate. Really, the only thing pulling her down currently is pairing with Anakin at 42% with 12 games played. We're seeing a lot of these pairings with, hey, this person got a rebalance, this person got a rebalance, or is new. So we're seeing a lot of those pairings of testing all the new stuff together, and not necessarily with the most optimal pairings. I definitely don't think that Anakin's best pairing is Ahsoka or vice versa, but I'm definitely interested in the Ahsoka Mace. And then Mandos are a very natural home for her. And what I love about that most is just that's her taking what she comes with in the core box. And I think that's definitely something we're going to touch on at a later time, but that is just so friendly for a new player experience. I will throw it over to Sean to talk about Iden.
The reigning champ, the ire of some players, Iden, 40 games played with a 64% overall win rate. I think she's still good, guys. I think she might be still good. And continues to be Obi-Wan Kenobi's boogeyman. I think it's actually the highest games played yet, 12 at a 71% win rate. Anakin, 7 games played at a 71% win rate as well, too. And then your boy Mace, 8 games played at 69% win rate. So we are, early days, but it still does feel that Iden does very, very well against Galactic Republic. She's still great friends with Vader too. 15 games, 73% win rate. Grand Inquisitor, 8 games at 63. The glow up that we see with not only the Grand Inquisitor, but also Reva and Fourth as that 2 model package might be a really, really great pairing for her.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that Iden's kind of doing the thing she's always done to poor General Kenobi over there. No changes from a balance perspective to himself, but a lot of things around him did change. Titus, how's General Kenobi doing?
So General Kenobi's doing pretty good. He's got 160 games, 59% win rate. Like you said, he didn't change, but thanks to his knowledge and defense ability, any buff to the clones that make them more survivable, or he's a force multiplier. Anything that they survive, they become a threat because they can move after being attacked. So before, they were getting one shot all the time, and knowledge and defense doesn't do a whole lot when you're dead. But now that they have that extra hit point, it seems to be treating him really well. So he didn't personally get a buff, but he got buffed. In terms of who he likes to be paired with, we're seeing a lot of Mace, a lot of Anakin, and a lot of Hunter. So for all you guys out there saying Hunter's bad, I don't see it. He's doing well.
Shots fired. I like it.
We don't talk bad about the batch here.
Not in this house, apparently. Not with these guys.
Honestly, Kenobi's one that I'm very interested in, and probably on my list for Battle for Breath. Ace and OB right now have a 71% win rate at 26 games. Again, and just a caveat as we continue to go through this is 2 weeks in. This is very early data, and a lot can change, but I think it does give us a lot of early insight to how these primaries are performing on the table. So I want to jump over to Jedi Master Mace Windu, who I've had a great time playing with so far. We're seeing 2 pairings with him, and again, he is an incredible force battery. He has this fantastic aura of protection and steadfast, and we've seen him just be a lot more of a team player in this rendition post rebalance. There's certainly some lists that he's struggling in. I think there's going to be some particular pairings, though, that he really shines with. And that is going to be 2 we've spoken about so far, with General Kenobi and Ahsoka Jedi No More. Currently, again, Kenobi's that top win rate at 71% in 26 games. And we're seeing Ahsoka just trailing that at 70% and 10 games. Being on the flip side, Mesa's overall win rate is sitting at about 50% with 111 games. So I really do think, he's not going to be that generalist for Republic, but I do think in the right list with the right game plan and definitely more of that defensive style list, I think we're going to see Mace shine. In terms of win rates so far, one of the matches that Mace is not faring so well into, and I'm guessing a lot of that has to do with tiebreakers, is 41% into Grand Inquisitor so far. Sean, how is the Grand Inquisitor faring?
Grand Inquisitor is very popular. 129 games, 52% win rate overall. And obviously when we see it glow up on a character like this, that's I think overall very popular. This makes sense for us to see a high amount of games, and again, a unit and a box overall that I'm super excited to get on the table, because really it was just fifth brother for a very, very long time. It was only fifth brother out of that box, and everything else was collecting dust. Grand Inquisitor's highest games played is with Vader 1 and a 63% win rate.
Oh yeah, it looks like a good list.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see that Inquisitor tag just really be the baseline of that list again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the standout for me.
So I know there's an elephant in the room that everybody is probably expecting to hear about.
Skywalker-sized elephant?
Yeah. The Chosen One.
Yeah, so I think Anakin came out as the all-star of the rebalance. We spoke about that last week. At 177 games played in 2 weeks. That's getting into some real data territory. So let's take a look at that. So Anakin's coming out of that with a 51% win rate. And my initial reaction to that was everyone's wanting to test him. That's probably a lot of mirror matches. But in reality, we're only sitting at 20 games of that 177 are in the mirror. Anakin's overall doing pretty well. And there's primaries that Anakin is doing incredibly well against. There's some primaries he's struggling into. And some of the pairing adjustments have a lot to do with that as well. We've seen an incredible amount of Anakin and Kenobi, which I think is both the flavorful list. This is a pairing that I think a lot of people wanted to play early and just didn't quite function the way you want it to. It's coming out with 55 games played at a 60% win rate. And honestly, this one's a little surprising for me because I wouldn't have guessed that was a great pairing but between the two. I think there's two very different game plans, but it looks like it's coming together. And I think that's from a lot of the synergies of what you take in those lists. Both of them want those clones. Anakin in this matchup, moving all of your secondaries and supports when they all have hunkers on them and are difficult to get off of those points, I think is a huge benefit. So this is one I'm excited to try. I'm a little hesitant on the lack of direct out of activation movement from either of the primaries, but this is clearly working with some good data behind it. Anakin and Kiadi are sitting at a dead 50% win rate at 46 games played, as are Anakin and Mace. So Mannequin and Kamakin are doing just great.
Did you want to touch on his mission too? Because there's been discussions on what he's good on and what he's not good on.
Yeah, so Anakin coming out so far at a 58% win rate on Sabotage Showdown. That doesn't surprise me at all. That is the melee-friendly mission of the mission packs.
And a lot of people are bringing Sabotage with him, so like everyone's correctly identified what he's good at.
To the other side of not surprising, 35% win rate so far, and Never Tell Me the Odds. I still don't think he has the movement to really let him shine on that mission pack. 55% on first contact is interesting. It requires a similar movement, at least struggle 1 that Odds does. But when you get to 2 and 3, I think those objectives are a lot more packed together. And when those shift, I think a dash does a lot of work into readjusting, and being able to readjust that much of your list, I think is going to let Anakin shine on 2 and 3. Shifting priorities is the interesting one. I think there's been some conversation that might be his best mission. Currently sitting at a 43% win rate on shifting. And from my early observation, I think it can be hard for Republic in general to get just enough to the midline to be able to take the first struggle on shifting quickly. But against lists like Commandos, what we can see Iden do, what we can see Rebel Commandos do, and really any Rebels list, on being able to take that midline very, very quickly. And I do think there's going to be some circumstances where Republic just can't get there as fast as some of those lists can. What are your guys' thoughts there?
To put a little Empire seasoning on this, yeah, I think as an Empire player and any other Empire players out there, if you're seeing a lot of Anakin, I think you want to do one of two things. You want to be building your list for Never Tell Me the Odds, or it's looking like Iden, Death Trooper, Escort, and ISF are still perfectly acceptable for taking midline on shifting priorities. So I think there are a number of different directions that my Empire family out there can take if Anakin continues to be highly taken.
I think that's good advice generally to prepare for Never Tell Me the Odds if you're running into a lot of Republic, because I think that's good into the faction in general. They get a lot of dashes but struggle to get advances, and Odds makes that a bit of a liability. On top of that, Anakin still doesn't get a lot of movement on his turn, so pins are going to be very effective against him. Obviously, it depends on your opponent's list. If they go the Republic route of everything gives someone else a movement, they can just keep moving Anakin to try to negate the pins. But I still think it's a valid strategy to try to condition him up similar to the way you would with Maul.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a twist on this a bit, and let's take a look at how these primaries we're talking about are performing in a few early events so far. Based on digging through Longshanks, there was actually a ton of events to go through this last weekend. Nothing big. As I'm looking through that, I think it's really clear that a lot of communities had events lined up for what they were kind of guesstimating was going to be post-rebalance based on some early conversation. It seems like we see a ton of just local community events getting together and testing some things out. Sean, we were chatting pre-cast. We've got, I think our next big event is the UK Games Expo coming up.
Yes, it is. Yeah. UK Games Expo. I was actually talking to our good friend James Green, multiple GT winner, who is going to be looking to take that one down. He has a little bit of secret sauce and some things that he's going to be bringing. But yeah, I think that one's a really, really great event. It's heavily backed by AMG, and I think I believe it's the first GT post rebalance as well. So that's going to be one to watch. The UK players have also traditionally always loved playing Republic. I think this rebalance is going to be really, really great from what we've seen traditionally from players coming out of the UK.
Yeah, and it seems like there was an event in the UK, literally said pre-Expo Rumble. So this was 12 players, 4-round event, and a couple cool lists. The first place winning list are some things that we've talked about, looking at Iden with Vader 2 and Mace Obi. I really like the Mace Obi list, and nothing incredibly surprising, but if you're only taking one Republic list and not going for that full premier, I think we're using um, our best secondaries here, at least. So we've got Mace, Kenobi, Rex, Snips, taking ARFs and Commandos. I thought was interesting in the Iden Vader 2 is they stuck with Gideon Haskier with Iden, and we saw Boba Fett ISB with Vader. So an interesting list. Took the 4 rounds. Next up, our friends in BC had a 3-mirror event. Again, another 12 players. To our friends in BC, I would love to highlight more here, but I need you to put some lists in, not just primaries, and we will be happy to talk about what you guys have going on over there. We saw another event, another 12-player event in France. Anything standing out to you guys from lists there?
Well, I'm noticing that Iden once again took top spot. So that's 2 events out of the, I think, 5 we're talking about where Iden still came in first. And that's like the Iden box got nerfed. So obviously they're not out of the running by any means.
No, yeah, Iden is still very much the thing. She's fantastic, and I don't think Iden's going anywhere.
Also of note, this is the second one where Gideon Hask was still taken. So I guess his identity, I guess not identity, his passive, whatever they call it.
Basically an identity.
Yeah, it's still very usable.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think that there might be a case here that a lot of players were expecting to walk into an Iden-less meta and may not have been prepared in their list as they were. And I think in reality, this is something you still absolutely need to prepare for. And it's not just Iden running out there. Ad Bounty Hunter lists with IG-88 are also running a very similar game plan when it comes to just out wounding. So being prepared for those high aggro style lists.
Yeah, I'll call out, I think it's, 3rd place here. Hellwinter, taking a little bit of a different twist on the Inquisitor. So Grand Inquisitor, 3rd sister, 5th brother, Darth Vader, Jedi Hunter with Rex and ARFs.
Interesting. And without other Republic in there, I am.
With Kanan and Hera as the second pairing.
I like it. I'm on board.
It's cool.
That's a way to move Jedi Hunter around, which is a very valuable tool. Be curious to see how now my Republic brain is thinking, and is maybe I can take GI as a 4th list if I'm taking Vader as a core list. All right, let's add that to the test bank.
You're never getting through it all.
Never getting through it all. We also saw a 15-player event in Australia. So Titus, I'll actually pass this one over to you because I'm looking at that first place list there and I don't know what's going on. Can you tell me?
So I do like the first squad with Cassian, Lobot, the Weequay Pirates. I have to assume that it was paired with Lando.
It was.
Because Lando's bringing Gorm, Han, and Chewie. I mean, the Pirates are just fairly good now. They're solid units. They have steadfast. They hit pretty hard in melee, like especially when you do Lobot's security network. They go in, they do a free 7 dice attack if they're engaged with another Weequay. Like that's just excellent. Han and Chewie are also just a great 5 dice attack. It's Cassian coming in, making it less desirable to wound you, and then Lobot making scoundrels just great. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that.
4 force though. 4 force.
But Lando helps deal with that. There's a little bit of luck involved, but he helps.
Princess Leia charming to the last, Darth Vader Fallen Master, and ISBs?
So I could see this being another anchor list with Cassian, but you can also go Princess Leia with Talzin as just a ridiculous...
Yeah, so the other 2 matchups were
Revenge.
Talzin and Leia.
Okay, so it's just going in on the revenge thing.
That
you
is
have Savage
spicy.
and Darth Vader, who are incredibly tough, And then the only commonality I see between the Super Commandos and the ISB is they say you can't walk away from me. So maybe Talzin is going in using manipulating hand to make people dash away from your supports.
Titus, I'm going to need you to test it.
I mean, I did when ISB came out, but I think things have changed a little bit. Having Darth Vader in there changes it significantly.
Nice control elements with both Talzin and Vader 3.
Yeah.
All right, last event I want to talk about, which is the big one that happened over the past weekend, is the Sci-Fi May the 24th event. This had 22 players coming out. The Zion's crew did put on an incredible event, our biggest so far since the rebalance, and where we saw Anakin really come to shine. There was a whole lot of Republic, and I totally get it. That is the new fun and exciting thing post rebalance. There's definitely more changes there than anywhere else. I'm not going to dive into this one too much. I'm going to let these guys have some fun talking about their event.
These results are not surprising to me. Shout out to Taylor Chavez, who I believe actually took Thrawn Moff and only played 6 bodies.
Nice.
Yep, 4th Sister and 5th. Yep, so he did a Thrawn, Stormtrooper Sergeant, 4th Sister, Moff, 3rd Sister, and 5th Brother. So Taylor, straight
I
up.
love 6 models. Way to play.
I really like that list.
Yeah, I love it too. I'm interested to talk to Taylor, but hey, are there any difficulties in playing 6 bodies? Are there situations where you're like, geez, I wish I had one squad with 2?
6 bodies Spectre, I'm less on board. 6 bodies Inquisitors, when they're tiebreakers, I'm a lot more comfortable in that space.
And that might be the defining factor.
I'm excited for some more events. We've got some big ones. I think, again, the UK Expo. We've got our Battle for Breath in 2 weeks. I'm excited to see this data grow. I think we're going to learn a lot more about these primaries and what this meta is shaping out to be. I can tell you from preparing for an event right now, it is guesswork. It's as I'm sitting here trying to put a list together, it's taking guesses. I think the primaries that we talked about today are ones to think about as you're building your list. I think all the things that were good before rebalance are still here and relevant as you're building and preparing for events. And that's going to lead us to, as we spoke about in episode 1, we plan on doing a primary of the week. And this week, first up is going to be Grand Admiral Thrawn. We've talked about Thrawn a couple times on the last episode. Thrawn is an incredible support primary. Sean has piloted Thrawn very, very well throughout the previous meta. I think all of us are in agreement here that Thrawn is going to have an important place in Empire Premier lists as we move forward.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Thrawn's going to be great.
All right, so we're going to kick it off. So Thrawn brings 7 points for list building and 2 force. Thrawn brings with him an absolutely incredible kit. As I'm looking at this ability card, almost every ability looks to be an identity. And identities are really interesting, where with, I would say, the majority of primaries in this game, their identity is why you're putting them on the table. It's what really makes them unique. And I think Thrawn has 3 identity level abilities on this card. So first up, I want you to know failure, utter defeat for 1 force allows you to reposition. And if you end that movement contesting an objective, that's going to add 3 dice to your next attack. This allows Thrawn to just have pretty consistent attacks on his own activations. The big reason why you're bringing Thrawn in any list is the next one, which is his battle tactics. These cards go into your order deck and allow you to add movement to your list. Sean, you are far more the expert here when it comes to these cards. What are these battle tactics doing? Which 2 are you typically bringing?
Generally, and kind of the consensus is that sometimes brutality serves a purpose is not the best one. It's still very playable. I've seen people run it. It is essentially a damage-based card. I always take their strategy, turn their strength against them. This is the one that gives an ally character a full advance. Then if they are a Galactic Empire, which obviously you're taking a full Galactic Empire list, it turns into a reposition, which is fantastic. Now they do eat a strain for this, which can sometimes be a little bit problematic, but you're generally with the reposition. It's not hurting you too much, and there is some healing ability within the list too. Then the other one is I expect results, not perfection. Choose an allied Galactic Empire supporting unit or an allied Galactic Empire secondary. Each character in the chosen unit may dash. Then that the unit loses all its hunker. I would generally use this on Dark Troopers, or if I needed DTE to be somewhere. These
Of
battle
note,
tactics.
they all have a second mode to them, which is generally more situational. It doesn't come up very much, but
Yeah.
they
I
all...
don't think I've ever used the second mode on any of these. It's always just for the movement playing in the control.
I think
style.
on brutality, that's actually the reason you're taking it. It's when somebody wants to be able to bomb the points.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely the weaker of the three. I will agree there.
Yeah, so the overall strategy of the battle tactics is that they give you superior movement, essentially out of activation movement within your order deck. You flip these cards, you do the ability, do the movement, and then carry on to your next flip.
Yeah, knowing what to do with these cards is a big part of playing Thrawn. I expect results, not perfection. And Sean, you and I have discussed this many times. You default to that movement so often, it can be easy to miss the plays for that diceless displacement that this card gives. So keeping an eye on this when you flip it and really looking at the board state and figuring out, okay, what is my best course of action right now is a really important part of playing Thrawn. The movement shenanigans continue with We Must Wait and Watch. This allows you to reserve for one force less than normal. Typically, it's going to put that down to a free reserve. And then if you want to spend a force, you can. And that unit gets remove a damage or one condition and a reposition. So this is keeping conditions off your list. This is allowing pieces to move around. Your last piece is his identity, which is to defeat an enemy, you must know them, which is allied Galactic Empire units. When they have one or more injured tokens that are engaged, have protection. And when an allied primary unit is wounded by an enemy attack, after the effect is resolved, you may refresh your order deck. And this, in a lot of cases, can fix some of the force issues that may come from Thrawn because you get to refresh your force at the same time. One of the interesting things is to keep that first ability in mind because I think playing against Thrawn players, that is one of the most common things I've seen forgotten or missed, is that protection post being injured. Because of all the movement abilities that Thrawn's bringing, you're really going to gravitate to secondaries and supports that are very tough in list building because you want to move around those tough units and make them difficult for your opponent to deal with.
We Must Watch and Wait is a great sneaky way to move up Fifth Brother and bomb a back objective from your opponent, and then just reserving for free. Like you said, Kyle, really helps you manage usually the 5 force that you have with Thrawn and whoever he's being paired with.
Yeah, for negatives here on this side of the card, he does only come with 9 health, which means he can definitely take a wound, but that also you're refreshing your deck, you're gaining force back when that happens, so you definitely have to think carefully before wounding Thrawn. I think we've covered, the base of Thrawn, and again, I think we're all in agreement that Thrawn's going to be an important part of Empire list building. In terms of difficulty to play, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would we put Thrawn?
Are we talking play it flawlessly? He'd be a 10. He's got a lot of complexity. But he's also very forgiving. Like, you could do a lot of things with him, even when you miss a lot of his triggers. Because, you can't really miss his battle tactics. They jump out at you out of your deck. You're not going to miss those triggers. Having just a free reserve, it's powerful, regardless of whether or not you know what to do with it. He has a lot of very powerful abilities that are very basic, but can benefit you far more if you know what to do with them.
I'm going to use the Dave Portnoy pizza scale here, and I'm going to put Thrawn solidly at a 8.7. Thrawn, I think, like Titus said, does a lot of basic things, but I think with Thrawn, he's very much a primary that you need to be thinking a few steps ahead. You need to understand what you have in your order deck. Do I have any battle tactics left? When we talk about the lists overall as well too, some of our lists are also going to have a lot of movement. I think it's that pre-planning aspect that you really need to think about with Thrawn. Thrawn's own activations are very similar to a Vader. It's move, move, hit. There's not much going on with him past that. It's what am I going to do? I know I have the advanced battle tactic coming up. Who is my target? Where am I going to move them to? Where are they going to go? Or the one that moves the supporting unit. Okay, am I going to move my secondary? Am I going to move my supports? It's that pre-planning aspect and thinking those couple steps ahead that I really had to change my perspective and my thinking on to become fairly good with Thrawn. So I think maybe for some newer players, that might be a little bit more difficult because we are still with a newer player. We're still thinking about just going through the basics of a turn and maybe not even thinking about, hey, what are you going to do? You know, you got 3 cards left. One of them is a battle tactic. What if it's at the bottom or what if it's at the top? What are you using it on? Where's that model going?
Yeah, I think honestly I agree with both of your points. About 8 out of 10 was kind of my off the cuff feeling there. You know, I do think there is some parts with so much movement provided in the list. I think it can be forgiving for positional mistakes, but to get the most out of it and really see what Thrawn can do, it takes a lot of reps. You know, and I think this question really comes down to me on would I recommend Thrawn to a new player, either jumping into Empire or jumping into the game? No, I wouldn't. And I think part of that comes down to the box that he comes with. So looking at the not accepting surrenders squad pack, Thrawn himself comes in the box along with Agent Callus and the ISB agents. And when I look at those, Agent Callus is an exceptional scoundrel, rebel, and Spectre.
Not good Empire. Not good bad guy.
He's not good in Empire.
Not good bad guy.
And that is, you know, he was a better good guy than he was a bad guy. So I'm on board thematically. I actually think the ISB agents are a pretty incredible 3-cost support. One that Empire heavily needs with how many 7-point primaries are in the faction. But I don't think their places with Thrawn either. What would you guys rate this box from an out-of-the-box play?
If you play it as is?
Yeah.
Together, like...
I've never tried it.
A 3?
I don't know.
3.2?
I'd lean to 1. I actually struggle to think of worse.
Yeah, I'm probably being generous there.
Yeah, like I think Thrawn's incredible, but when I look at out of the box experiences, I think this is a big part of why a lot of people may have moved past Thrawn pretty early. You know, it takes the right pairing, it takes the right lists, and that right list in almost every circumstance I can think of right now requires 3 boxes.
Yes, it does. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
or more.
More. So let's dive into this. So each of us for our primary of the week has come with a showdown list. So Sean, I'll pass it to you first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm going to start off with the tried and true OG list. This was the list that I was primarily playing pre-balance. The only change that we saw here was Dark Troopers. I have not played this list as is with the new Dark Troopers yet, just to put that kind of out there. But I do definitely want to get it on the table again. What I was using this for pre-balance was a revenge heavy list. So when I saw Kanan Mando, Kanan PLC, anything with high revenge triggers, I wanted to play this. And the reason why you want to do that is that this is a control list that really focuses on movement, shoves, and conditioning up models. So my list is Grand Admiral Thrawn, Stormtrooper Sergeant, Dark Troopers, paired with Moff Gideon, Death Trooper Escort, and Fifth Brother. Tons of movement with the battle tactics. Stormtrooper Sergeant, Death Trooper Escort have movement. Moff Gideon has movement. Fifth Brother with the jump. Dark Troopers with the jump. You have movement for days. You have 2 tiebreakers here with Moff Gideon and Fifth Brother. Just it was a really, really great way to take these 2 with Iden. The opponent think, oh my gosh, he's playing Iden. and then flip the script and then be able to play this control pairing into revenge primaries, very seldomly wound them.
So what mission are you taking with that?
I would generally take shifting priorities again to give the idea that I'm playing Iden. This pairing plays extremely well on odds. I said in our first episode, I actually think this is one of the best pairings that you can play on odds without an infiltrate unit.
And I think based on our current meta, that is a bunch of Jedi running around right now, I think odds might be the play there, right?
Yeah. And Dylan, for those that know, another fantastic content creator out there, has also mentioned that he's played it on First Contact a number of times, and he feels that it is probably one of the strongest pairings on First Contact.
Awesome. I think that is a great starting point. I went a very similar style list, and I think you're going to see this throughout this because Thrawn likes specific things. You're looking for high health secondaries and supports. You're looking for things like protection, steadfast, tiebreakers, difficult to move bodies. So I went the Inquisitor route. Very similar start in Grand Admiral Thrawn, Stormtrooper Sergeant, and I'm going Fifth Brother here. Was really heavily sinking the Death Troopers here. I do think that supporting Fire Dash is something that Thrawn and Stormtrooper Sergeant really, really like. And honestly, as I say it out loud, I think that's where I'd move for just the showdown pairing, is putting the Death Trooper supports in this spot. But Fifth Brother is totally acceptable. And on the other side, we have the rebalance heroes of Grand Inquisitor, Third Sister, and Fourth Sister. I think these three as a squad, and this will be a whole nother episode to dive in, are absolutely incredible. I think this fixes a lot of the Force issues that can come with a Thrawn list. You're getting a pretty aggressive second squad out of this. I think it can play on odds. I think it can play just about anywhere. I'd still lean Sabotage for this, and I think you can really swarm points with tiebreakers. That's my list. Titus, what are you bringing?
So, I'm going to ask you guys to keep
go.
your judgment at the door and come on down to my secret lab.
Yeah, there we go. I love it.
So, imagine a world where instead of this cold, calculating, logical figure, Thrawn is instead a chaotic gambler. And who is better friends with a chaotic gambler than another chaotic gambler? So I'm pairing Thrawn with Lando here.
Yeah. Nice.
So we're looking at Thrawn with Agent Kallus and Wingard, and then Lando Calrissian with Bosk and Han and Chewie. So the idea behind this is we're taking Thrawn's ability to shuffle the deck and pairing it with Lando's ability to punish your opponent when you shuffle the deck. Ideally, you want to always have 2 or 3 Force in your pool, which at that point you might be saying, well, why do you have Kallus? The reasoning behind it is that ideally, with Thrawn and Lando, you're playing really aggressively with your primaries, and you want your opponent to wound your primaries so that on their turn you can apply a whole bunch of conditions using Lando's identity. And usually what happens is it can go one of 2 ways. One, your opponent takes the bait, or they don't. If they don't take the bait, suddenly you have all this force and force regen from Lando and a little bit from Han and Chewie, and you're looking for a way to spend it. Well, Kallus is great for that. If they do take the bait, you're shuffling your deck a lot, and you're able to just throw conditions on them in the middle of their turn on whoever you need to put a pin on, or a strain, or a disarm. You are limited to 4 force, which can be a little tough. That said, you also have, for your supports, you have Wingard and then Han and Chewie, who are both fairly tough. Wingard has steadfast when they're on a point, so it makes them hard to take off a point. Han and Chewie just have a ton of hit points and are fairly flexible in how they want to play. And again, you get that force regen if you do kill someone, which can help make up for the 4 force. Finally, with Lando, you get to apply a tag to someone. So how I would usually go about this is with Lando, he wants to be a rebel. Kallus, you also want to make him a rebel because then he also gets the scoundrel tag. On whoever's turn it happens to be, you're using Lando to apply the rebel tag. Everyone except for Thrawn is a scoundrel and a rebel, so they'll be getting a 2 dice reroll from Callus if you happen to need it. Obviously, on defense, that's not going to work because you don't get to do it on your opponent's turn. But it works out fairly well. All of Thrawn's cards, in terms of the battle tactics, have something you can do that is not tag dependent. Lando can apply a tag to someone whenever you reveal an order card. This can mean the battle tactics as well. So for that particular turn, you can apply tags to 2 characters or 2 tags to one of them. And that can be useful to make your Callus pool a little bit broader, whether that's giving the Bespin tag to Callus on Lando's turn, something like that. Obviously not the point of the list, but just little fun corner cases you can take advantage of. Is this a good list? I don't think so, but it can be a lot of fun, and it can absolutely blindside someone.
Is it hella fun? Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like, not every list has to be competitively viable.
Exactly.
This is something that you put on a table and say, hey, check this out. And if you get to do your cool combo, great. That is a win for you.
Love it. That's what we said off the hop. It doesn't always have to be competitive.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of mixing factions like this. It's always fun to see what weird corner cases you can get. And Lando is probably going to come up a few times because he enables mixing factions very well.
The when you reveal an order card is really interesting for what that can enable in this very particular case.
Yeah.
Welcome to Titus's brain, everybody.
Yeah, that might come up if we ever do a Lando episode, but for now, Thrawn's the focus. So it's really wanted to double down on that. How do we take advantage of shuffling the deck? That's the part that I was excited about. And I think this is the best way to do it, which is have Thrawn run heedless into danger, and either he holds a point and your opponent goes, oh, I'm not touching him. You're going to shuffle your deck. Or they do attack him and you get to disrupt their plans mid-turn.
Love it.
All right, well, if you have a Thrawn list out there, throw it in some comments. We'd love to see it. If you get Titus's list on the table, let us know how it does. I'm on board. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. I've done it twice. It was fun. It's ridiculous, though. Yeah, I don't recommend it if you're learning the game.
That is totally fair. I don't recommend Thrawn if you're learning the game, which I think is where we we
ended up on. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we are 2 weeks away from Battle for Breath. We mentioned it here already, June 7th and 8th, Kitchener-Waterloo. Also, 2 Grand Prix coming up, August 16th, St. Catharines. Leland Martell's running that one, and ours in October 4th and 5th, Forest Convergence. Those are going to be the 2 GTs if you want to come up north of the border. Tickets are available for everything. Hopefully we'll see some of our friends from America come down, and of course everybody from the east and west of Canada.
Absolutely. As always, like, share, follow, all the good podcast things. We absolutely really appreciate it. And I want to say again, I said this early on, thank you all for the support so far. We're really excited to be doing this and have a lot more planned. Hit that follow button because we will have some contests coming up in the near future. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate you listening. Thanks.